Oh, yeah. Very pretty.
That
Very
giant,
pretty.
that giant Jessica. It wasn't the technique of doing it, Jessica. It was my first go when I got all the way around to the bottom right. I was off by one, and I count 2 or 3 times before I start to stitch. So I'm like, how's this happen? I pulled it all out. I recounted, started back around, same thing. I pulled that thing out 3 times before.
No.
I looked back over at the pattern and I'm going, wait a minute, one. Oh my Lord, there it is.
I hate when I do that.
Oh, I do too. And I've been known to do it a number of times.
Yeah. Yeah, I was afraid the thread was giving you problems because panache is not the easiest thing to work with.
No.
But it's so pretty that
It is.
I love using it.
I ended up wasting a little thread, so I hope there's some extra. That if not,
well, yeah, if you run out, just let me know and I'll send you some.
Okay.
Usually I have extras or I can get them quickly and can get them out to you. And so if you run out, just let me know. And
Okay.
even if it's not my fault.
Well, I would be more than happy to pay for them. I was lucky. I had the chronic in my stash in that color, but the interesting thing is when you hold them up side by side, mine is slightly yellowy, so the tone is not the same.
Yeah, I don't, a few years ago they changed requirements for thread dyeing in Europe. It had to do with the mordants or the fixers to fix the color. And a lot of manufacturers, including those who do the metallic threads, have run into this issue where the mordants have slightly changed the tone or the color of their products. And so you can compare something that you bought this year with something that you bought 5 or 6 years ago, and there will be differences in the color. Even in DMC, which says they don't have dye lot changes, but you can really see it when you hold them up side by side. So
it is interesting. I've been going through everything that's in my storage area with my stitching and pulling out anything that was started and never finished. So I started stitching needlepoint in early 1988. 1988. And about a year in, I took this class that was like over my head so far, but it's a beautiful piece. It could be one of yours because there's a lot of layering of stitches, and it's really gorgeous. And I had done one corner, and when I was looking at it, I'm like, well, you didn't do too bad a job. I mean, it doesn't look that bad, but I cannot find that thread anywhere. I pulled out my everything. I mean, everything. I finally found a little bit of the soy that was cream colored, and I found some of that. So I thought, okay, this must be where this came from. But the others were those DMC, what do you call them? Moray, is it Moray? No. One of them is the Bijou.
yes.
I finally found this at one site. Then I had to look for the DMC, and the other one it's simple threads. It's not that, shouldn't be that difficult to find, but I finally did find them all. And I was going to show you the final piece. This is the design. Let's see, where's my camera? There it is.
Oh, nice.
Isn't it pretty?
Oh, yeah.
And all of those corner pieces are Japanese gold.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I love working with Japanese gold, but
at the point where I took this class, there was no way in hey I would have ever been able to do that. But I'm hoping so far, this is midnight blue and it actually matches what I've stitched. So I'm hoping that I'm going to turn out okay, and I want to finish it. So shame. And it's the Joyce Lukomsky.
Yeah.
Called Plaid with Panache. And of course she's passed away.
Yeah.
But really great.
She was a wonderful teacher and designer though. And so you're very lucky to have that.
I think so too.
You know, you could probably put it up on Needlepoint Nation or something. People would be leg wrestling you for that chart.
Well, I have a lot of Kelly Clark's. I've been thinking about putting them up. I went through a period where I was enamored of her baskets.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually took a class on Picnic in Provence,
Mm-hmm.
where we wove the little blanket on popsicle looms and whatnot. It turned out so beautifully. I fell in love with it. Well, then I was program person for our A&G Guild for 3 years. And one year I thought, you know what, I'm going to teach some of her baskets. And I tried to get permission, copyright permission, but I never did get a reply. So then I thought, well, I won't do the whole piece. I'll just pick up the technique for the baskets and maybe that'll work out. So I've got about 4 of them, and then the gill folded.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Me too.
Yeah, it can sometimes be really challenging to keep a guild going because I was in an EGA chapter when I lived in Arkansas that had been in existence for some time. And when I joined, they were meeting in a gated community where you had to have permission to enter, which I'm thinking, you know, for a public meeting, this is really not the best place. Surely you
Right.
could find a place where, you know, you don't have to check in at the front gate and leave them your name and your, you know, just to go to a meeting. But anyway, the issue that we had with this chapter was someone would say, well, let's do this and such. And everybody said, oh, well, we did that 3 years ago, or I've already had something with her, or I've got something like that I never finished. And so they never did any projects.
That's the bad thing, you know, it broke my heart because I had just assumed presidency. So it was my job to close the guild.
Oh, that's terrible.
But we have a very active, large EGA guild,
Yeah.
and they embrace needlepointers, quilters, anything and everything. But like you say, when time comes for projects, they don't really do many needle points, and I am not an embroiderer. I did that in a previous life, and I don't want to do it again, although I'm very interested in stump work and thread painting.
Yeah.
But
Well, and you know, those even stump work is a technique that can translate to canvas.
yes,
And you know, thread painting, not so much because, you know, it involves a lot of splitting of threads and things like that, which we don't normally do in canvas work. But some of the shading and things like that, that translates. I look at every technique in every class I've ever taken with an eye toward learning, not necessarily that particular technique, but something I can translate to canvas. And it's amazing how much translates to canvas.
your idea for this is just so amazing. It's such a beautiful piece, and the design is lovely. Of course, when I saw that you were the designer, I'm like, oh yeah, I can see that now. Because I've stitched some of your other pieces, and I know that, you know, you do really nice stuff.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. It was fun developing the additional colorways. You know, when I first saw the ceiling at Union Station, I put a picture in the classroom so y'all could see what my inspiration was. Of course, it's all ecru. There was no gold in it at all. But I thought in order to get a little bit of depth, I needed to have a little something. And so, but it was fun coming up with the other colorways. So, Karen, now that you have your mouth full, which colorway did you choose? Are you working on?
I'm doing the blue one.
No, Karen, you're muted. You're muted.
Oh, I don't see anybody else. Let me do that. Now I do.
Okay, I'm not working on yours right now. It's on the sticks. It's sitting at my table. I just had to finish something else a little faster because I'm working on Christmas gifts, and those
Oh,
things
yeah.
have a deadline. And particularly this year, because I'm probably going to have to mail them.
Right.
So I have to have time for that too. And the mail is not exactly stable this year.
Well, I haven't had any problems. I mail a lot of stuff all the time, and I have not had any problems with sending things out or having people receive
Oh, they're
them.
just slower than normal. And when they
Yeah.
hit the Christmas rush, if everybody starts dumping, they've gotten rid of so many people that it's going to be really slow this year.
Yeah.
It
I'll
gets
tell
better.
you, Karen,
Mhm.
I mailed these kits expecting one thing and you guys were getting them a day or day and a half earlier than you were supposed to.
That's good. Nice to know.
I was shocked.
Well, Karen, what colorway did you select for this
The blue one.
project? The blue one. Okay. Well, I hope that Bobby and Karen, when you're ready to stitch, which may or may not be this year, and that's fine. I
It's
completely
up there.
understand.
It's gonna get ready. It's on the stick. That means I'm going on it. But I have to work on the other things because they're getting boring because they're close to the end.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
know if I let myself start the new piece, I will never finish the old ones. I'm not good that way.
Yeah. I have a tendency to work on one thing at a time, but I actually have two projects on stretcher bars right now because I'm doing a stitch along on my blog. And so I have to keep up with
My
that.
husband can hear you, and I have probably 30 on bars.
Oh, shh. And then
He
the
knows
other
it. He's
project
always
that I,
robbing one to put sticks on the next one.
yeah. Well, the other project that I started last night is an ornament design. Every year, the people who are on my email list, I send them a free ornament design. And so it's time to get that done so I can send it out.
Yeah, so it could get done before Christmas, maybe. That would be our Christmas morning stitching.
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. But anyway.
We have enough pressure. Don't need any more. This is
No,
a
and no pressure from me at all. And so even after this classroom, I don't know how long this classroom will remain open within the Cyber Pointers group. But even
Debbie,
yeah.
they are typically open for up to 2 years or more.
Oh, perfect. That's perfect because then you can access all the files and everything, and that's fine. But I was going to say, if you ever lose anything or need another link or help with anything, just email me, even if it's 5-10 years down the road. I'll help you. So
Don't we have great communications these years?
yeah,
It
we
used
do.
to be, it was really hard, and you went to all these great seminars and stuff, and then you'd get halfway through the piece and go, I'm out of, and getting hold of the teacher and having her find anything. It was a difficult time. We
Yeah.
didn't know it was difficult. We didn't know it could be this good, but
Yeah, things are a lot different now. I was my dad died a couple of weeks ago, and I'm going to do at the memorial service, I'm going to do a brief talk about family memories. And my dad knew how to do just about everything, and this was pre-Google. He couldn't look anything up, and he built furniture and refinished furniture, and he made soup and cooked breakfast for us. And there was no YouTube, there was no Google. It was just, he figured it out.
They just figured it out. They didn't
Figured it
have
out. Yeah, and we live on a
resources
farm
we have.
that was my husband's grandfather's. And what he does when he encounters a problem, we're not farmers, we're not ranchers. We live in a house, and he does IT work, and I do my computer work. But occasionally, things have to be done. Like we had a leak, and he had to go dig out the pipe and cap it and replace the pump, and because it was going to be 2 weeks before a plumber could get here to do it. So he did it. But his philosophy is that his granddaddy would have just managed. How would he have managed this?
Mm-hmm.
And he thinks about it, and a lot of time gets it done.
Yeah.
So anyway.
My father was a lot like that too. Not quite that bit good, but he he worked at it.
Yeah.
My mother used to cringe though every time he went off to something he really didn't know what to do. And I'd watch her cringe and go, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. They start standing on a ladder that's,
Yeah.
15,
That-
20
that's a
feet in the
no-no
air. And
around
I'm
here.
just kind of like, gives me the willies. We have an antenna to receive our satellite. And he got a weather station so that he could get the wind and temperature and all that kind of stuff. That he was going to mount 60 feet up in the air on this
No.
antenna.
No.
And so I'm sitting there watching him, and there's no safety harness, there's no nothing. And I started having a panic attack. I mean, just a full on
I can't
panic
breathe.
attack. Can't breathe, heart, chest pains, the whole 9 yards. And he had to come back down. And when he came down, he said, it was okay. It was kind of scaring him too. So
Nice that he would admit it.
yeah, we don't have a weather station mounted to our antenna.
Smart deal.
Fine with me. Fine with
Yeah.
me.
If
Okay,
you
so
get
let's.
broken and you have to replace things in 60 feet in the air, it's not a good idea.
No. Okay, so let's talk about gilded cabochons. That's a lot safer and it's on the ground. And so have you had any challenges so far? Well, not you, Karen, but Bobby, have you had any challenges so far other than the counting?
No, I didn't actually. But, it's just really pretty. I love the way it's turning out.
Yeah, I can hardly wait to see the pewter and the ruby and the blue topaz. Of course, I've seen the ecru because I did it, but I can hardly wait to see the other colorways. So the lesson this week was working above the first rectangle and starting into some of the satin stitches, which the satin stitches, there's a lot of satin stitches. That's one reason why you got 4 skeins of floss, because it's going to take a lot of floss to cover all of the ground in this project. And the satin stitches can really be relaxing once you learn the pattern, because you just go. And I tried to arrange the structure of it so that you would have definite places to start to, edges. And I did all the compensating for you, so you don't have to figure that out. But does anybody do y'all have any questions about satin stitches, laying stitches, starting or stopping satin stitches? Anything? Karen, you're muted again.
I think I've taken enough classes that I've figured that out finally. I love classes and I go to all of them. I've had several classes from you.
Oh, well, good. Thank you. Yeah. We always have people I always have people in my classes that it's the first time they've attempted anything like this. It just seems to be inevitable. Now, I don't think with cyber pointers would run into that as much because we're used to taking online classes because it's all online.
Online classes.
Online classes. But, I always try to make sure that everybody knows how to lay stitches, because if you've never seen a demonstration of a laid stitch, it can be a little bit challenging to figure out, okay, exactly how am I supposed to do that? So are y'all comfortable with that? Do I need to review anything in that?
A review is always good.
And I've never seen anybody demonstrate a laid stitch.
Okay.
That's 2 votes.
I have my canvas all set up. So now, if you have a question about anything, just shout out, because my attention is going to be over here and not on the screen. And so the chat feature will not really work. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my camera view so that you can see can everybody see my canvas?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and I'm going to spotlight this so that it's bigger. And of course, I don't have my laying tool here. Oh, I've got a laying tool. It's not the one I usually use, but it'll work because the principles are all the same. You could even use a toothpick or, you know, a big needle. It doesn't really matter. So I've got my fancy dancy glass laying tool. And I will strand some floss real quick. And I am going to anchor with a loop start just to make sure you see that demonstrated as well. And you can't use a loop start with 3 strands, but there's a lot of places where it's 4 strands. And you could use a loop start if you have 4 strands. So what you do is you pull off a length of floss that's twice the length that you want to stitch with because you fold it in half. Okay, so I've got 2 strands and I'm going to fold it in half. I've got the 2 cut-ins together. Can y'all see that? The 2 cut-ins are together. Here's my loop. And this is what I put in the needle. Like that. Okay. So let me find my, okay, there we go. Now, when I'm doing a loop start, I do it over a single canvas thread. I do not do it over 2 canvas threads, 3 canvas threads, 4 canvas threads, just 2. I mean, just 1, because that will hold it securely. And I don't put it at the start or the end of a particular stitch. So there's my loop start. Did y'all see that?
Yes.
Goes by really fast. And let me just get out my book here so I can get out a satin stitch pattern to look at. Okay, we'll just do some balloon satin stitches to start with because that's done with 4 canvas threads. And when you are doing satin stitches, you want to actually be better if that was going a different way. I'm going to turn my canvas around real quick because I would rather be stitching horizontally like it is in the book as opposed to vertically. And I'll just get this back in position real fast. Okay, that's that edge. Okay, there we are, right there. Okay, so my first stitch in the book is over 3 canvas threads, and I stitched from the bottom to the top. I'm looking on page 24. Let's get that down a little bit. And so I have my little loop start is right here, and I'm going to put that right in the middle of the 3 canvas threads. Now, the reason why I don't want this to be at the start of the stitch is because I could unstitch it when I bring the needle up. And so I don't want it at the start, and I don't want it at the end of the stitch because it might get me off in my count and confuse me. So when I am doing satin, a laid stitch, when I'm laying stitches, I hold the thread against the canvas in the opposite direction that I'm traveling. So I'm traveling this way. I'm going to hold the thread against the canvas until I'm almost ready to finish the stitch. And then I bring it down like this, kind of arc under it, and bring the laying tool out. Now, usually I use a trolley needle as opposed to a laying tool because holding a laying tool in my hand sets up fatigue. And when my hands get tired, I can't stitch. And so my trolley needle is currently by my stitching station, which is in a different room. This is my demonstration station where my video camera is. And as you're stitching, you just, it really is more helpful if you are using a stand because that way you have your hands free. So this first row for the balloon satin stitch is a compensated row. It's not the the balloon, the full balloon. It's half of a balloon. But that's basically all there is to it. Now, if you want to, you can get there's a tool called an afficot, and you can burnish your satin stitches after you've got your pattern stitched. And that just kind of helps everything to lay down the way it needs to. Was that enough of a demonstration?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm going to take it off of the spotlight and go back to me, to my face. Go back to my gallery view. Okay, there we go. So, you know, that's basically it. And it becomes a very easy rhythm. It's so ingrained in me now to do those kinds of lay stitches like that it's really difficult for me not to. Now, you don't need to lay non-divisible threads, although there have been times when I have laid really twisty threads, like the panache or the krynic, because I want it to go into the hole the way I want it to go into the hole, not the way it wants to go into the hole. And so a laying tool will help you control it. It's just a way of controlling your thread so that your thread does what you want it to do and not what it wants to do. Have y'all used laying tools on other threads?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, especially with ribbons, you really have to use a laying tool to get them to lay flat the way that they need to.
Or you can just avoid using them.
Yeah, but why would you do that? They're so pretty.
Oh, but I'm so frustrated when I get done.
Well, I like neon rays and I use them quite a bit, as y'all can tell. If you've done any of my projects, you know that I use a lot of neon rays. And I use a mini flat iron on them.
I finally got that. That makes a big difference.
It does make a big difference, and a laying tool. And another thing that I do is I hold it above and below the canvas as I'm stitching. So when you bring the needle up, it relaxes the tension on the thread, and the thread that's on top of the canvas has the tendency to wiggle around. And so if you will hold the thread while you're bringing the needle up and then let it, and then follow it down, and then hold it underneath. Let's see, then when you put your needle in, you hold it on top. And then move your hand to underneath the canvas. I'm sitting here moving my hands around. Move your hand to underneath the canvas and hang on to the thread under the canvas while you're bringing the needle up. That will also help to control it. And I also will sometimes just put my finger on it on top of the canvas and hold it in place, because it is.
Milton always said you had to do it, lay it on top and bottom.
I never lay it on the bottom.
I like your idea better.
The
Flipping
only
that canvas over all the time drives me crazy.
Yeah, I hate flipping my canvas over, and that's why I use loop starts and pin stitches so much, because I hate flipping my canvas over, especially if it's a great big canvas and it requires a lot of manipulation to get it to flip over so you can look at the back side of it. So I do as much as I can from the front so that I never have to do that. I do still have to on occasion, but I have minimized that as much as possible. So I don't lay the threads on the back of the canvas. Now, if I absolutely cannot get neon rays to behave the way I want it to on top of the canvas, I will flip it over and look and see what it's doing on the back. And if I need to, I will lay it on the back. But that's just for that one stitch, that one time, to make sure that it's going to behave the way I want it to. But as a general rule, I don't lay threads on the back. I know that I know there's some people that do, but I'm not one of them. So yeah, we've got things going on in my house right now. My house cleaner is here, and my husband's leaving to go get his hair cut, and the dogs are barking. I mean, it's just
A little chaos.
it's chaos, always chaos. Anytime you have more than one person in the house, There's unpredictable things that happen.
Mm.
Okay, now I do want to talk a little bit about, yep, there goes the dogs. On page, satin stitches are fairly straightforward and relatively easy. And I've tried to, as much as possible in the lessons, tell you the path that I took, that I stitched this in vertical rows, or I stitched this in horizontal rows back and forth, or, I went all the way to the bottom and then came back all the way to the top. And I'm trying to do that. But if you'll notice for the oblong cross stitches on page 28, I did not give you any numbers. And that was a deliberate choice. In the first place, you should know how to do a cross stitch. Pretty basic. But one of the objects in this particular project is for you to be able to interpret a pattern, to look at it and figure out what path do you want to take through this particular thing. So when you look at, like on page 28, you can see that there is a very definite diagonal row. And so you could stitch your oblong cross stitches diagonally in a diagonal row back and forth. The only issue that you're going to have is making sure that the last stitch is the same for all of them, whether you were stitching down the row or up the row. You need to make sure the last stitch is always the one that's on top, as opposed to switching them around. Or you could stitch it in horizontal rows back and forth, or you could stitch this one in vertical rows. To me, it made sense when I looked at it to stitch it in vertical rows up and down. And so you have to reverse the direction of the stitch a little bit in order to make sure that you have the same stitch on top for all of your little oblong crosses. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yes.
I know a lot of people are really bothered if they encounter a diagram that does not have any numbers or arrows on it, but I tried to give you enough direction in the wording that you would be able to figure it out and do it. And I think the same thing is true with the Milanese, Oriental stitch on page 31. I didn't give you any numbers or arrows, but I did, even though it's all one color, it's two very distinct stitches in the pattern. It's Milanese stitches and slanted, or in this case, Gobelin stitches that are straight up and down. And so I broke those out in different colors so that you could find a path that would make sense as you stitched this. Does it make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yes.
I was just looking at that. My first thing is I would do it horizontal. That makes sense to me.
Okay.
But I can see how you could do it perpendicular.
Yeah.
Straight and down.
So, this is something that you're going to encounter throughout this project, where rather than spoon feeding it to you, I'm going to let you make choices on a stitching rhythm and a path that is comfortable for you. As long as it looks the same, it doesn't matter on the front, it doesn't matter what it looks like on the back. And there are a lot of different ways to arrive at these patterns. And so I try to tell you how I do it, but then if something makes more sense to you, is more comfortable for you to stitch it that way, it's fine with me if you do that. Okay?
Mhm.
Okay, that's all. Let's see, I'll post another lesson tomorrow and it will finish out this upper right area. And the cabochon in the upper right area is also padded with, let me look at it real quick, because I don't remember. Oh yeah, it's felt and then overstitched with pearl cotton and then overstitched with the decorative thread, because that's another way to pad a stitch, is by using pearl cotton or floss to add a little bit of extra depth to it so that you don't waste your expensive thread. But that's basically it.
Very nice. Learned some things. Now if I can remember them, I'm doing great.
Maybe I will ask you one question. I had trouble casting off on the knotted stitch for some reason. I couldn't figure out how you could use a pin stitch and then stitch over it So I pulled it through the back and buried it.
Okay, I'm going to show you
Am I not
something.
seeing something?
I'm going to show you something, okay? Give me just a second. I need to share my screen with you. Okay, let's go to this slide right here. Can y'all see that?
Yes.
Okay. in the current slide.
Yes.
You could have put a pin stitch anywhere in here. In the open area. Because it's going to be
Oh.
completely stitched over.
Duh.
I knew you were going to do that. You're going to, why didn't I think of that? It's so easy. Okay, so as you are stitching through this piece and you want to practice starting and stopping with pin stitches, always remember that it does not have to be under the stitch itself. If there is an open area that you are relatively certain will be completely covered, which in this case, almost everything is going to be completely covered with not very much open canvas, you can put a pin stitch. You could put it, right under here. It might make a little bit of a bump, but who would ever see that? Under the felt and under the stitches that went over it. You could even have put it over here, because this is all going to be covered up with satin stitches. But if it's an area that's going to be covered up with satin stitches, make sure that your pin stitch is in the shape of a T, because that's very flat, as opposed to 3 times over the same canvas thread.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you. Now I feel really like a dunce.
No, we've been told and told and told that you have to end threads under the same kind of thread. And that may or may not be true. I would not want to end a black thread or a red thread under a white thread, but all of your threads are going to be virtually the same color in this piece. Especially in the open cabochon areas, it's all padded, and a little bit of extra padding because there's a pin stitch there will never make a difference. And so feel free to look and see. You can look at the main graph and see where all the areas are that are going to be covered up. Now, directly over some of these are stitches that are not going to quite cover the canvas, and so I would be careful not to put anything there. But under all of the cabochons, there's going to be everything's going to be covered up.
Okay.
Okay, does that help?
Yes, it does. I was so busy trying to figure out how to make my thread, so I was stitching over it. I'm like, I can't do that.
Yeah, I know. It's not always possible to end stitches with a pin stitch. But for this particular project, because there's so many areas that are going to be completely covered up, you don't have, and it's all the same color of thread, you don't have to end with a pin stitch directly under that area. You can move it out a little bit as long as it's going to be covered up later.
Okay.
Easy peasy.
Easy peasy.
And I wouldn't have thought of it, so thank you.
Well, and hopefully the other students will view our Zoom session and they will go, oh, well, that is easy. Okay, anything else I can help you with?
Time. You sell time?
Time? No, I'm desperately short on time myself. I've got kits that I have to mail out, instructions I have to write, projects I have to design, projects I have to stitch. Yeah, no, I have no time. Could you lend me some?
I can't find it either.
Oh,
Me either.
if the people that lived here didn't need to eat or have clean clothes, I'd have a lot more time.
Me too.
Same problem.
Yeah, they kind of want to eat. And I'm just like, just leave me
Oh,
alone.
no,
I'm stitching.
my husband retired and that's his job now.
Well,
I
my husband,
retired from cooking when he retired from working. So.
I still handle the cooking and usually do 2 meals a day. And, my husband does the dishes.
Mine too. We do it that way. If I
Yeah.
cook, he washes. Sometimes he cooks, then I wash.
Yeah. When he grills out, I wash, but yeah, we don't have very many options for eating out here. We live in a very small town and there's no DoorDash, no Grubhub. There's nothing like that. I can't even get pizza delivered here. And so I do it.
Like you would.
Yeah, fortunately, I'm a pretty good cook. So yeah, as you could, if you were to see my rear end, you would know that.
Will not go there.
No, we won't go there. We won't go there. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else that I can help you with today for Gilded Cabochons, let me say that right, then I will see you guys next week. And thank you for participating.
Thank you for having
Thank-
us.
Okay. I'll get an invitation out for the session for next week. I think I know the day, but I don't have it scheduled yet. So I'll get that done and I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Debbie.
Okay. Thanks, Candy. Bye-bye.
Bye.